GM. Welcome to Web3 Academy, your one trusted source to capitalize on the next big phase of the internet. Don't get caught in the hype cycle. I'm Jay Bird, joined by my co-host Kyle Reedhead, and we believe that crypto investing is going to change your world. That's why we're carving a path for doers to confidently build and invest in Web3. Kai, this is a special episode, man. This is a Sunday episode just for our listeners. We never usually do this. We're doing this because we're doing a two-part investment series. This is part one, how to 10x your wealth in the coming bull run. And then on Monday, we got part two, how not to make mistakes in the coming bull run, how not to get caught in the hype, because we know that is how most investors fall flat on their face.
And that's the more important episode, by the way. Most people are like, I want the 10X one. No. It's the don't make mistakes is the way more important one, but we'll talk about that.
Why are we doing this? Why are we doing this two-part investment series?
Well, we're doing this, for a few reasons. One, we just launched an investment course. So Profit from the Future, Web3 Investing Masterclass. And we made that course because we want to help others profit from Web3. We want to help others capitalize on the opportunity. And we think, specifically right now, we'll talk about why in just a second, we think now is one of the best opportunities you're going to have in this space, at least moving forward. And so we're trying to really harp on the fact that, hey, if you want to invest in this space, now's the time to learn. Now's the time to start investing and allocating. Don't wait for things to get into that hype cycle, which is what most people do. And I know at Web3 Academy, we usually talk around like the builders part of Web3, but we just think it's such a good opportunity right now, whether you're a builder or not. Like, this is the time you want to get in. This is the time when the real money is made, not next year when the hype's already there. The other reason the reason why I've been pushing for more investment stuff, even though we've stayed away from it, is I was in crypto for the last cycle, previous to the last cycle. And going into that cycle, I was screaming at all my friends, telling them, hey, this thing is going to go crazy. We need to doing exactly what I'm doing right now, actually, to everyone on every podcast, saying, guys, now's the time to buy. I was buying ETH at $100, buying Bitcoin at a few $1,000s. It was like, guys, everyone, now's the time to be doing it. And they didn't really listen. It took them some time. Some of them were earlier than others. Some of them were much later. But we all kind of went through that cycle together once they got in. We all did it a little bit differently, right? I obviously went all in. I built businesses in here. I started going to conferences. I did everything. And I came out on top. Even with the ups and the downs of this crazy bear market, I still multiple X my net worth. I 10X'd my net worth throughout the cycle. Most of my friends that did this lost money. Like, literally, Ethereum went from $100 to $5,000 in a matter of 2 years. And this is the thing I was telling them all to buy. And they still came out with no money, or actually less money, which is wild to me. Okay. And it's unfortunate because they're not even terrible investors. Like, they invest in other things and they do fine, but these cycles they're tough. They're very difficult. And so I learned a lot from those going through my cycle and watching others go through the cycle. And I just want to make sure that I can share that with others so that they don't have the same issues that some of my friends did. And even I made some mistakes too. And I want to see people capitalize because I think the opportunity is it's incredible.
Okay. So you're our friends listening to this show. Kyle's your friend. He's going to be here giving you the advice that you need to capitalize and to 10X your net worth in this next cycle. I'm just going to give an overview for today's show, and then we'll jump in here. So we're going to give a little bit of a state of the markets, how you look at the markets, Kai, and why now is such a good time. We're going to really talk about if it's possible to 10X in a cycle. Is that actually possible, or is that just clickbait? Are we just using marketing to get people to listen to this episode? Well, I think, as Kai said, it is possible. He showed it's possible, and we're going to talk about how it's possible for you too. And then we're going to talk about strategy and plan. Most people make the mistakes of not having a strategy and not having a plan when they go into investing. And so we're going to talk about what your plan and your strategy was that allowed you to do so well in the last cycle. And then we're going to talk about your final advice. So listen all the way to the end of the episode, guys, to get Kyle's final advice of what you need to do to 10X your wealth in the coming cycle.
And then, of course, we're also going to do a part two on this where we're going to talk about the mistakes that you don't want to be making during these cycles. So make sure to check that out. That comes out on, I believe it's Tuesday. And then also the course that I just talked about of why we're sort of doing this right now, that's now live. It just came live today as we're recording this. And that course covers all this, but way more in depth and actual, we're only going to go 30 minutes an episode here. It's all we have time for. This thing's, close to 10 hours long of information, and it gives you exact strategies and a lot more information and visuals and things that you need to like really comprehend this. And it's currently 33% off for everyone. That ends, I think, Tuesday. So the last part 2 is the last day you're going to get it. So make sure to get that. If you're a Pro member, you get 50% off. If you're a founding member of Pro, then you get 100% off, you get it for free. So if you are neither Pro or founder, you can also just go sign up for that and then get the discount, which is obviously way smarter. So up to you what you want to do.
And let's not underplay this course. I've been watching Kai build this course over the last several months. He has spent hundreds of hours building this course because he believes, and we believe at Web3 Academy, that this is the best way that we can help you achieve your goals of a better life, of more wealth. And so we're really throwing it all down with this course. You guys should definitely go sign up for that because you're going to want to get that knowledge. It's just so valuable. Kai, I want to give you a big mouth kiss, man. I'm so stoked.
Kissing lately.
Always
your dad now, so all you do is just kiss.
Dad, yeah, I got to give kisses to Jack, So, okay, let's set some context before we jump in here. Kai, where are we at in the markets and what makes you think that now is the time?
Yes, I'm going to keep this really short because we talk about this a lot on the podcast and the newsletter. So I don't want to just be too repetitive here. But in the context of what we're going to discuss, crypto goes in cycles. And we've had these cycles since basically it launched back in 2010 is when Bitcoin first kind of launched, 2009. And we've had 3 really big cycles since then. It was like 2013, 2017, 2020, 2021-ish kind of thing. And every time they look, they're not the exact same, but they're pretty similar. And they're about 4 years apart. And they typically go alongside the Bitcoin halving cycle. So every 4 years, Bitcoin cuts its inflation in half, which means there's less supply. And as long as the demand stays the same, or there's more, which typically there's more every few years, you see Bitcoin go up a lot, right? Whatever that amount is. The rest of the crypto market, which doesn't have this cycle, doesn't have this halving, has also had the same thing occur. They also go up at the same time. All tides kind of rise together, right? It's kind of how it works. And so the reasoning for the cycles is kind of irrelevant here, but whether it's the Bitcoin halving or what I think it is and what I've shared a lot is that it's actually around the business cycle, which happens to be the same time as the Bitcoin halving cycle, which is that cycle is more around liquidity, inflation, like all the things going on in the cost of capital, like in normal markets. And so I'm not going to get a ton into that, but basically what I see right now is that however you want to look at it, Bitcoin halving, which is next year. And so usually the markets start to go up a year before the halving starts, which we're in now. Macro is really clearing up. We seem to be come around the other side of that, like interest rate rising, inflation's really high. All that's coming down. It's not perfect, but it's way better than it was and likely onto the other side of that cycle. And then on-chain stuff. I mean, we obviously on-chain wasn't so great back in 2022 when everyone was going bankrupt and people were leaving the space. We seem to be past that. I mean, PayPal just launched a stable coin. Reddit's going nuts. Like people are using blockchain now, and the sort of sentiment around blockchain in Web3 is getting cleared up. Regulatory stuff is getting cleared up. So we're getting kind of the green flags on everything. And so I think we're sort of reaching that inflection point on all things: macro, technical analysis, sentiment, on-chain analysis, where everything seems to be pointing like, hey, from here, it's up, not up only, but from here for the next while, it's up. These cycles last the bull market goes for 2.5 years, and it's done this for the last decade. And so it's not just straight up from here. I'm not saying put all your money in right now and it's going to go 10x, but over the next 2 years, it's more than likely the odds are in our favor that it's going to be higher than it is today. And it will be a wild ride to get there. And that's why we're going to teach you a bunch of how to capitalize on that ride. But from now until the next 2 years, 3 years, I think the odds are in our favor that number go up. Right. And whichever way that goes up and however much, I don't know. I don't have a crystal ball, but for sure, if markets go up, crypto is going to be the one that does the best of anything. Doesn't matter if it's equities, gold, whatever. And so now's the time to be plowing into it and buying, because we're at that stage for the next bull run.
Okay. I'm excited. The timing is now. You got me. You got my attention. But what's possible? The title of this episode is that how to 10x your wealth. Is that really possible?
Yeah, it is. And I'm not saying it's easy. It's definitely not easy. It's actually extremely difficult, but the opportunity is there, no doubt. I mean, if we just look back at the cycle of, 2016, 2017, which then crashed in 2018, Ethereum went from $8 to $1,400. That is absolute insane. And people are like, okay, that's one time. It's never going to happen again. The bubbles popped. And then you had in 2019, Ethereum was sitting at, or 2020, Ethereum was sitting at like about $100, and it went all the way up to $5,000, right? So, I mean, that's a 50x in a matter of, I mean, it did that from early 2020 to the end of 2021. So in almost 2 years, it did a complete 5x. Now, look, it's back down to $2,000 now, or just below 2,000. That's still a 20x if you were buying back in 2019, early 2020. So like all you had to do was buy back in January of 2020 and never sell anything, take that whole ride up and down, you're already at 20x, right? So like, it's not hard to do that. That's very hard to hold something that goes up 50x and hold it when it goes down 75% and then back up again, but it's possible. And look, that's a 20 to 50x on the second largest asset in the entire space, right? That's not the assets that, like, there was Solana went up, like 300x, or someone went up 1,000x, like Matic was crazy. So like, there are many tokens that will go up way, way, way more than 10x, but even the least riskiest stuff will go up that. I mean, Bitcoin was down at 3K and it topped at 69. So even in the last cycle, which Bitcoin's been around for 12 years, everyone's like, oh, this thing's, it doesn't have any room left to grow. And you could have 10x just on that. So absolutely you can. It's possible. It's not the easiest thing in the world, that's for sure.
Obviously, it's not easy, but when you talk about it, you make it sound easy. What is it about your experience that has allowed you to understand the markets and to understand how truly to feel confident that you could make a course that would teach somebody how to 10x their wealth?
Yeah, great question. So first of all, when I got into crypto, before I got into crypto, I was already investing in other assets, right? So I had a bit of a background in investing and understanding that. I've been doing a lot of studying in economics and things like that. So it was also really easy for me to comprehend what Bitcoin was and what crypto was. So when I came into it, I had never been in a cycle before. And so I was new and I made a bunch of mistakes early on too. I bought a bunch of shit coins and I was like, whatever, let's do this. Like,
no way.
Oh yeah, I want to do a bunch of these random things. And look, some of them did amazing. Some of them just didn't do anything. Some went to zero. I was like, whatever. I wasn't putting it blind, just like $100 in each. But I also didn't have a lot of money back then. I mean, when I first got into the space, I'd left my corporate job a few years prior. I lived in Bali for a year, just trying to figure out what I was going to do. We had recently started our company, maybe about a year before, not even. And then I was living in Mexico. And so like, I didn't have debt and I had a bit of savings and I had a little bit of investments, but not a lot. And so it was a big learning experience. And so what I did is I took it really seriously when I came in, and I didn't just throw my money in like most of my friends did. They just threw their money in and then lived their normal lives. I threw my money in, then I laid down on the couch and I just watched podcasts for the next like 6 years. I haven't stopped since. You know what I mean? Like I started networking. I started like reading everything. I started interviewing people. I signed up to every newsletter and every course I could find. Like I consumed everything because I was like, I see this thing as something really big. I understand what can happen here with these cycles. And I started learning. And what I did was I learned from people that had been in past cycles, and I learned about past cycles. So I can speak about 2017, 2018. I wasn't there. I can speak about it like I was there though. And I would know just as much as someone who was there, right? Now, I didn't have the emotional feelings that you would get. And so like, I don't get it as much, but I know it very, very well. And that way I was able to see similarities to the cycle that we were just in 2021, 2022. And it really, really helped me navigate that cycle. Again, I didn't do it perfectly, but I did extremely well. Better than I could have done in any other asset ever. Like I just bought an apartment. I was like, this is so dumb. I don't want to do this. I'd rather, like, you know what I mean? Like, I know that I can make more in crypto, so why am I doing this? But I was like, I don't know, I just need to. But you learn a lot by going through the cycles, and then you just need to study and you need to learn about those who have been through, and like, you got to really understand the space. And that was why we started Web3 Academy, to be honest.
And so what's the opportunity you see in this coming cycle? You mentioned that ETH went up 20 to 50x in the last cycle. What do you think is going to happen? And maybe also, what's the timelines or the time frame of this opportunity? Is that coming next year? Is it coming now? Are we too late?
So I don't know the exact timing. The opportunity though is getting in early. When I was buying ETH at $150, that was the opportunity. Look, I bought ETH at 2,000, at 3,000, at 4,000, the whole way up. Okay. And many of my friends waited until it was at 2, 3. Most people waited for Bitcoin to be back at 20,000, right? To come back in that were in back in 2017. And so the opportunity, the real opportunity, it doesn't matter what tokens you buy, to be completely fair. The real opportunity is if you just get in before the hype cycle, which is why I've been screaming all year. It's now. And actually, I was screaming it back in January because really that was time. What ETH was at like $1,000 or something like that, right? And so again, that's very similar to when it was at 150 the last cycle, right? And so even now at 1,800, it's more than 50% below the all-time high. And typically with each cycle, you have Bitcoin and ETH going at least a 10x higher than it was the last cycle, right? So ETH last cycle, so 2017, went to $1,400 and then all the way down to about $100. I think it went down to 80 actually was its lowest, right? And then it went up to 5,000. So it means even if you bought the top of the cycle previously, you still tripled your investment, right? But if you bought it at the low in the bear market before things started, then you 50x, you maybe even 60x, right? So the difference is just unbelievable. So even in the bear market, a lot of people that came in 2021, 2022, they were hurt. They were like, shit, I'm down. I wasn't down because I had bought so much before it all started, right? And that's where we're at in this moment. So the opportunity is just being in it now. And then the real opportunity is just holding on to this stuff long term. When you understand what this asset is and where it's going, it's not trying to trade it unless you're a professional. It's not trying to jump into every single token and make that 1,000x. It's actually much easier to just, and we'll get into the strategies in a second, just hold on to the things that you know are going to make it. It's not hard to understand that Bitcoin's going to go back up above all-time highs, and so is Ethereum, right? I can't say that for anything else, but you know those two are. And if they do go past all-time highs, just like every cycle before, it's at least a 5 to 10x. So like it's a no-brainer, but you got to be in it at the right time, right? And so if you wait too long to be the for sure the cycle's coming back, then you're usually already too late.
And so the time is now, and that's why we launched the course now, because you believe that now is the time and now is the opportunity. And there's a lot to know. As you said at the beginning, it's difficult to do this
right
stuff.
And if you want, if you look at the cycles, what I would ask everyone to do is pull up CoinGecko or whatever you use, TradingView. Just look at ETH, for example. It's just the easiest to watch this. Like, don't be looking at a bunch of like random shit coins. Just look at Ethereum because it's kind of the proxy of the entire space, and look at where it was in 2019. Okay. And then also go look at the cycle previous to that. Maybe even look at Bitcoin. It's even easier if you do this actually. Look at it in 2019, look at it, and I think it's 2015. Okay. And then look at it in 2016, 2017. And it follows the exact same path, almost. It's not perfect, but very, very close, right? And so right now, we are in the same part of where it was in 2019 and where it was in 2015. In 2016 and in 2020, which would be the 2024 version of this cycle, was insanely good. And then the 2025, comparing that to 2021 and 2020 or 2017, same thing. That's where you have the blow off top where it's crazy. And then you have the bear market after that. So I think we do well this year, right? Then I think 2024 is a really good year. And I think 2025 is the insane year. And then likely we go back into bear market. Is it as big of a bear market? Is it as big of a increase? Probably not. It might lessen, but I think that's the general guidelines that I'm taking for this cycle and why I'm like, now's the time.
Mm-hmm. Okay. You mentioned strategy. I want to talk a little bit about how people pack their bags. How, what can they learn from you in terms of your approach to investing and your plan? So what's your recommended plan for somebody coming into this next cycle?
So the thing that I learned early on, thankfully, is that trying to guess the next 1,000x is next to impossible. It's very, very hard. And that's the thing that everyone does when they come into the space. They come in, they go, okay, someone told me about Bitcoin. They buy a little bit of it. And then they go, okay, now I want to find the thing that's going to make me rich, right? And they look like at tokens that are 100 and below in the list of top tokens on CoinGecko, and they try to buy these small caps and hope that one goes insane. And I realize that that's next to impossible. One, because it's so hard to figure out which one that's going to be. Two, because once it goes up, you have no idea when to sell it and like how long to hold it for. To hold something 1,000x is just like one of the hardest things in the world. You would have sold it many times before then. And it also, not only that, it goes up and then it comes down like 80%, then back up and then down. And you're just like, it's insane, right? So to try to time that, it's next to impossible. And so what I realized early on was, hey, if I just zoom out, right? And this is why I always show these charts that are on these logarithmic charts where I see this sort of like trend. If I just zoom out and instead of trying to pick these little shit coins and see which one's going to 1,000x, and I just buy the thing that basically represents the entire space. And by that, I mean Ethereum, or the layer ones, I guess, the ones that have the network effects already. And I just continue to accumulate those. They're not going to go up as much as others, but they're also going to go down a lot less. And I know they're going to come back next cycle. And that's all that matters, is if you get through the next cycle, then you're all good, right? Then you're 10, 20, 30, 40x, even just by holding Bitcoin or ETH, right? Instead of trying to pick out these small little ones. And so my strategy is it also removes a lot of noise. When you just buy the thing that you know is already working and is already good, and you don't get too greedy, it's pretty easy to just keep buying that thing. And it also allows you to just stay focused, right? All I'm worried about is, okay, this one investment I have, is that thing still good? Is it still improving? Are they still upgrading? Do people still use it? Are people still building on it, right? And if you have all those things, then you understand, okay, this thing's going to continue to go up. It's going to go up and down, right? But as long as the network is continuing to get adopted, then the value of that network is going to continue to go up. That's Metcalfe's law, right? Mm-hmm. And so you can just focus on that, and you don't have to worry about timing and trading and getting in on these like early tokens. And that takes up a lot of your time. And so instead, I just said, okay, I'm going to put most of my money into this and ride this thing up and down for the next 10 years. And I don't care what happens, right? And then, because we all like to gamble, I take a little percentage and I throw that into tokens. And those tokens can do really well. I did pretty good on a few different ones last cycle, and I take profits and put it back into my large cap. So really, that's the way that you like just simplify this. But the problem is when you go on Twitter and YouTube and TikTok, that's not what people are telling you. They're trying to shill their bags. They're trying to shill these small little cap coins. And that's what everyone goes into, and they end up getting nothing from it, right? And so it's a broken strategy. And the thing that I'm trying to say is like, look, you can take the least riskiest stuff and you can come out of this in 2 years from now and be 10, 20x. Imagine that. Like, imagine how life-changing that is, right? How much it leveled up my life from 2020 to now is insane. And we're in a bear market. It's not even that high, but I was able to do so well, even that in a bear market, I'm not really that affected. And even now, I've been buying and accumulating for the last like year through all of 2022, that I'm actually at the same amount I was at the top from the top of the bull market, right? And so for the next cycle, it's going to be the same thing, right? But it's going to go up even more for me. And so that's the thing, is you just want to accumulate as much of these like bigger assets as you can, and then you don't have to worry about a lot of the risk and a lot of the like time-consuming stuff that this space can fill you with. To me, that's the easiest strategy. Now, obviously, you can trade it, but it's damn hard and it's a lot of time. Like, it's very time consuming, and you got to be a professional. And I think most people are not that. We have our own jobs, run our own companies. And for me, that's not it, right? And it's still, then you just have a lot of risk if you're trying to do that. And there's a chance you don't win. For me, investing in this, as long as crypto wins, as long as blockchain wins, I know that my strategy is going to win. So it's a lot less stressful. That's for sure.
Yeah. What I love that you talk a lot about in the course is the importance of having a plan when you go into an investment, and to know when to take profits. And that's a difficult thing to understand. We don't have time to dive into that right now, but in the course, you really do explain that very well.
A plan, I actually, as I was filming the course, I was like, shit, I'm saying this way too much, but it was stick to the plan everywhere. I swear it's on every slide. I was like, just stick to the plan, because you're going to notice, and we'll talk about this probably in the next episode, which is, your plan is going to want to change a lot in these cycles. So these cycles are they're crazy, man. It's really hard to wrap your head around what happens during these cycles, because a million things launch. Every company says they're coming in here. Things are going up like haywire. Everyone says they're making millions of dollars. Like, it's absolute mayhem. If you were here in 2021 or 2022, you would remember this thing was crazy, right? And that's what happened in 2017 as well. And it's what will happen this time as well. It's the same thing. It's really hard to stick to a plan. It's really hard to like form a strategy during those times, because you just think that you're a genius because everything you own has gone up so much. And you're like, everyone just starts moving everything. They start leveraging stuff. They do whatever. And the thing I'm so glad is there was all that hype, but thankfully I did all those crazy things that everyone did. I did them with a very small portion, didn't make anything off of it. But that big portion that I was holding on to, that I just stuck to my plan with, that's what kept me alive. But most of my friends didn't do that part. They did all the like gambling and craziness, which everyone's going to do. That's just what you do in cycles. You can't control that. We're human. But they didn't have the rest of it. And so they lost most of it. That's the big problem that I don't want to see people do. And so that plan that Jake keeps saying, and that I say in the course, that plan is the key thing. And that's what I lay out for you guys in the course, is my exact plan of what I'm doing in this next cycle.
Can everyone follow the plan? Do you need a certain amount of money or skills? What if somebody already has a lot of money or is invested elsewhere?
No, I mean, I'm not a pro trader. I'm not a pro investor. I don't do options and I don't really do leverage. I don't even know how to do options, to be completely honest, right? And I don't want to know how. I actually just don't care, because the plan that I've built out is just something that's extremely easy for everyone. You can have $1 million, you can have $5. It actually doesn't matter. And actually in the course, I talk about ways to increase the amount that you're putting into your investments and give some strategies along that, because it doesn't matter how much you have. If it's $5 or if it's $1 million, you're going to increase your wealth by 150 to 250% every year, whatever that is. Every dollar that you can put into this space, if you follow this plan, if you hold it long enough, on average, you're going to make 150 to 250% per year. And that can be on $1, it can be on $1 million. It doesn't really matter. And so where else can you get that, right? It's impossible to get that in any other industry. And it's crazy that we're living in a time where we can get that. And it's not a certainty, of course. But again, as long as blockchain and Web3 happens and becomes a thing, then I believe this strategy is going to give that for you.
Just because you mentioned it, that it's crazy that we live in a time where this is possible, I think it's important to acknowledge, because you also talk about this in the course, is this might not happen again. It might, right? Technology advances and these types of big bubbles do happen, but certainly not, so far we've seen one every 20 years type thing.
Well, the thing to understand, the reason why I'm so convicted in this is, and I talk about it a lot for pro members, and I do explain this in the course as well, is technologies that have network-based technologies. Think of them like Apple is a network-based technology, right? The App Store. The more apps in that store, the more value that store is, the more valuable it is to have an iPhone. The more users that have an iPhone, the more valuable it is to those users and also to those apps, to the app developers, right? And so it's a network. And the more that network grows, the more value that thing creates. And that's why Apple has been up only, and I say up only in quotations, because of course it's gone in cycles as well. But since the 80s, when they launched, it has gone up and up and up and up and still is today. It's now a $3 trillion company, which is insane. Amazon, same thing. Google, same thing, right? These are network-based technologies. And like the phone is a network-based technology. And the more people that get on this network, the more valuable it comes. It's called Metcalfe's law, and you can value that. And you can track the value of that as well with these logarithmic charts that I've shown for pro members. And so crypto is the same thing. These are network-based technologies. Ethereum is a network. The more developers that use Ethereum and build on it, the more apps that come out, the more valuable that thing is, because more users will come. The more users that come, the more apps will come on it. And so all you need to do is look at, does this network continue to grow? And if it does, the price doesn't mean it's going to track it perfectly. It goes up and down. That's what these cycles are. But you can kind of value it, and you can kind of value it long term. And so as long as you believe that more things will go on chain, which it is, going on chain is a 10x improvement to many, many things on the internet. Anytime you get a 10x improvement, it's almost a guarantee that technology comes into fruition, right? The internet was a 10x improvement for everything in the world. It almost got banned. People were saying it's be a fad, et cetera. But it was like, no, this thing's a 10x improvement on everything to do with information. And so it's a guarantee, but we couldn't capture the upside of that. We couldn't invest in that. Amazon, Apple, all those we could invest in, and many did, but you couldn't get in from the very early stages. And you can here with Ethereum, and you can with Bitcoin, et cetera. And the thing with these technologies is they're still extremely early in their growth of their network, extremely, extremely early. Think of Amazon back in their early days, or Apple back in their early days. That's what these are right now. And so these things have tons and tons and tons of room to grow. And I think that they're going to be way bigger than these companies in Apple and Amazon, et cetera. And so I think it's still extremely, extremely early. And you can have high conviction as long as you understand how network effects work. Once you understand that, it makes the space a lot easier.
You just get me so stoked. Let's go. Come on. Here we go. Okay. I want to touch on the course. If somebody were to take this course, they click the link in the show notes, they get the 33% discount, they sign up, what results can they expect from taking the course?
Look, the course is just information. It's up to you to actually go and implement it and to stick with the plan. That's the hard part. And so, look, if you stick with the plan, then I think you're going to do as good, if not better than I did in the last cycle. But I think you're going to do much better, because now, like, my learnings are much better than it was back when I was back in 2020, 2019, right? And so I think there's no reason you're not going to do a really, really, really good job here in this cycle. Now, you're not going to get it perfect, but if you stick to the plan, you are. If you try to gamble and you try to just like go with no plan, there's a good chance you're probably going to lose. I'd almost put my money betting on that you will lose because it's actually extremely difficult, unfortunately. And so I think you're going to go into the cycle with less confusion, which is so key. You're going to have a plan to stick to. I think you're going to be able to see it all coming. That's the nice thing about it, is in that I talk about these cycles and I explain what's going to happen. I explain what you need to do plan-wise, allocating-wise, emotionally, psychologically, and you're going to see it all. You're going to go, oh shit, Kyle told me that. Oh shit, Kyle told me that. And it's going to make this cycle just so much easier. Now, the course is meant to give you the foundation so that you can look at something and go, that's hype, or that's not hype. Or you can look at something and go, okay, that's a good idea. Maybe I should. Here's how I can research that team and that project to see if it's actually a really good opportunity or not. Instead of just going, someone on TikTok said this thing's going to 10x tomorrow, and so I FOMO'd it and bought it at 1 a.m., right? And so you're going to have the knowledge and the foundation to actually like make these decisions yourself. Now, you can also be a pro member, and we, of course, as we do, we give updates on tokens and opportunities and things all the time, but you don't necessarily need that. That's a good tool for you, but you'll be able to go in and look at projects and look at things and understand if it's good or not yourself. And so it'll give you confidence to the cycle, which is just so key.
For me, a couple of things that stood out from the course that I found so valuable was one was understanding trends, secular and cyclical trends. I think most people aren't able to zoom out and see the big picture because they haven't been through this before, whereas you have. I also think, even though we're talking about ETH and Bitcoin as the stable investments and the investments that we recommend the most, you also talk about how to invest in blockchains, how to invest in app tokens, how to invest in NFTs. You talk about the flow of capital within crypto. So you go deep into investment across all assets in crypto. And then you also talk about portfolio design and diversification and how to think about your entire portfolio and how to manage it when the emotions are high and the emotions are low. Like, these are all such valuable pieces of this course that I know anybody would gain from. Go ahead.
Well, I just want to say one thing in terms of this emotional thing and the cycles and what you learn. So in the beginning of the cycle last time, I didn't know much. And so I bought a bunch of these shitcoins, like I said. But then I quickly learned from conviction and studying, et cetera. And when NFTs came along, we've talked about this in our show all the time. I never got into the NFT hype. I didn't lose a thing in NFTs. Actually, I made in NFTs. Jay, however, was new. He didn't come in early on. He was one of the friends I was saying to get in early enough, and he did for the most part, but not full on. And so and I mean, most of our listeners, we've talked to them in our Discord, they all got wrecked by NFTs. And I'm not saying like I'm better than everybody. I just happened to go through that earlier with the DeFi tokens. And so I was like, oh, I kind of get what's happening here. This makes more sense to me now. And so I was able to be more confident and more just balanced during the NFT craze. And so that's the exact results you're going to have, but through this entire cycle.
Who's the course for? Is it just for newbies? Is it for financial professionals? Is it for long-term investors, short-term investors?
So it's for a lot of people. I try to keep it simple so that newbies can understand, but I do use some financial talk, but I make sure to explain and give context if I do. But the interesting thing is whenever I talk to like finance guys, like here in Toronto and stuff, I school them on all this stuff. And so I actually think it's for finance people. I think it's for complete newbies. I think it's for your just Web3 enthusiasts and developers that are just in the space, because you guys are going to get what I'm talking about. Like, I really do think it's for everybody, and it's just explained in normal speak. Like, you don't have to do a bunch of formulas and all this stuff. It simplifies investing, which is exactly what I wish I had in 2019 when I first came in, because the only courses around back then were like hardcore finance courses. And so like, I was like, what am I learning right now? And so it's simple, but it's like actionable and it works.
How does somebody sign up for the course?
So there's a link in the show notes below where you can go. So anyone can get a 33% discount. You just click on the link and then click to the landing page. You'll see it there. You just click enroll and you can buy it. And it'll be, I think it's $249, but we've taken 33% off. So you can do that by, I think it's like Tuesday or Wednesday. If you're a pro member and you have your pro pass of the pro NFT, then you can, on that same link that you click there, you'll be able to connect your wallet, prove that you have that pass, and immediately you'll get the discount to the course. Same with if you're a founder member. If you didn't mint that NFT, send us a message and we'll have to hook you up with a code somehow. You'll just have to prove your email kind of thing. But this is why you want to mint your NFTs, guys. You get opportunities and it makes it seamless and easy instead of making us go and find you a code.
Okay, awesome. So final question before we wrap here. What's your advice to investors right now?
My advice would be take this seriously right now. And even if you're like Jay and I always focused on building on our podcast, and we still do. That's most of our show is still about that. But there are times to build and there are times to be like, okay, this is the time I put my capital to work for me so that I can go and build my dream things and not have to slave every single day kind of thing. Right now is that time. And so I think my advice is take this stuff seriously right now and look into it for yourself. Don't trust me. And actually the thing I said in the course was decentralize your information, right? Your knowledge. So get from Web3 Academy, be a pro member and learn from what we say and learn from me, learn from Jay, but don't make that it. Go learn from other people too, and then go do your own research. That's how you really learn what's going on, is by doing your own research and by learning from multiple people and keeping an open mindset, right? There's so many people on Twitter yelling right now that, oh my God, inflation's still high and interest rates are high and, it's a bubble and blah, blah. And if you just get stuck in that, which a lot of people did, you've missed an 80% gain in 2023 already this year, which is still nothing. It's peanuts, but you've missed that. It's a big deal to some people. It's a big deal to me. Absolutely. Felt great getting 80% this year. And so it's keep an open mindset and learn, right? You build your conviction through learning and understanding, not through just like throwing money on a thing that you saw on YouTube and then just like hoping it goes up. That's not it. You're never going to succeed that way. But if you learn, you put in the work, meaning take these courses, do these things, that's how you really can build conviction and figure it out. And so start now, get your plan in place now, which I'll help you do in that course, or don't take the course and get it somewhere else. Doesn't matter. Get a plan together right now, though. That's the key thing.
And how does somebody make sure they avoid mistakes and avoid the hype? Because I think you said at the beginning of this episode, that's the most important part. Well, in order to get that, you're going to have to listen to part 2, which comes out on Tuesday. So tune in Tuesday morning. We'll have part 2 of how to avoid the hype and how to avoid making mistakes. As Kai said at the beginning, that's probably the biggest hurdle, the biggest mistake, the biggest hurdle, the biggest issue that most people face in these hype cycles. They get in their own way.
Well, it's not hard to make money in the space, but it's hard to keep it, right? That's the hardest part, is keeping it. I'll tell you, you can put your money in anything and it's probably going to go up in 2024, 2025, right? When we're in that kind of cycle. But the problem is actually keeping it. And that's what most people just can't do. Whether that's because they get too greedy, because they leverage, because they try to get yield, because they start trading, like whatever those reasons are, you end up losing it, unfortunately, where you hold on to it too long. And so understanding these cycles, understanding your psychology throughout it all and managing risk is just, and not only risk, what we haven't mentioned yet, security. How many people get fished and just lose it all that way, or put it on centralized exchanges and lose it all that way? Like there's so many ways you can lose it. And we're going to make sure you don't lose anything. Well, I can't say that. You might lose something, but we're going to help you mitigate that risk in part 2.
And those are all things that you go into great detail in the course. So if you haven't already done so, if you're not convinced, go check out the link in the show notes, read the landing page, take the 33% discount. You're going to make your money tenfold. Well, I can't guarantee that, but you're going to do well as a result of this course. Kai, thanks so much for your time today. Thanks for guiding us all and leading us all into this next cycle. We're all so excited. On-chain summer. It's an exciting time right now. Things are happening.
Things are happening. It's great to be here and it's great to do it all with you guys. I love it.
Thanks for listening in, everybody. We'll see you Tuesday for part 2. Have a great day.
Thank you for listening to Web3 Academy, your one trusted source to capitalize on the next big phase of the internet. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it and subscribe or follow so that you don't miss the next one. While you're at it, there's a link in the description for our free newsletter where we provide timely and relevant Web3 insights so you can confidently build and invest in Web3. Make sure to subscribe today. One final note. This podcast is for educational purposes only, and nothing we say is financial advice. Crypto and Web3 are risky, and you should never invest more than you're willing to lose. Thank you, friends, and see you in the next one.